Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Andrews, and I'm here with the National Sports Media Association. And today I have Brendan Marks with me. Mr. Marks, how are you doing?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So before we get started, can we get some background information on you and where you currently are in your career?
Yeah, so I just finished up my fifth season covering college basketball for The Athletic. I'm one of our, sort of regional national college basketball reporters, and yeah, just got back from the Final Four, still recovering.
That's great. That's great. And how did you kind of get into the realm of just sports in general?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people in this business, I loved sports growing up. My dad grew up around the corner from Fenway Park in Boston, so he used to tell me stories growing up of cutting class and going to Red Sox games. And one of my first vivid sports memories is 2004, is the Red Sox, breaking the curse and winning the World Series. And so I had always, grown up around sports, wanted to do it, and then got to high school and stopped growing at about 5'9", 5'10", and realized that probably wasn't going to happen. So I wanted to pivot, still wanted to be around it, and I happened to live around the street in high school from Braxton Berrios, who now plays for the Miami Dolphins. Went to my high school. I interviewed him once for a story and just kind of fell in love with it from then, and kept doing it, kept getting more and more involved, kept learning about the sports, the people in them, all the stories they have, and still doing it now.
That's great. That's great. And would you say that kind of inspired you to enter sports, or like was there kind of something else that inspired you?
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about sports, like obviously for me specifically, like I love basketball. I loved soccer growing up, love football, love baseball. But for me, it's all about like the people and it's those moments. And like, in 2004, the Red Sox break this incredible curse. And like, my grandpa had talked about that and my dad had talked about that. And this is something, it like connects people. Sports do, they're connective tissue. And so for me, I just had always wanted to be around them any way that I could, and feel fortunate that I've been able to do so, in a way that kind of lets me tell, especially hopefully, some of those really cool stories of people and teams and coaches.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that you write extensively about college basketball already and the NBA. Can you kind of, talk about that and that whole process for you?
Yeah, so I went to school. Got my undergraduate degree from North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Obviously, basketball is king there. So very early on, was very excited to cover men's basketball, women's basketball. I remember my first semester at UNC, I had covered some, smaller Olympic sports. I had covered tennis and I had covered rowing and things of that nature. And on the last day of the semester, everybody was going out partying and there was a women's basketball game that night. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do it. Again, I just really loved that experience and was able to cover North Carolina in 2016 and 2017 on those Final Four runs. Was able to be there when UNC won the title in Phoenix in 2017 when I was a senior, which was a great experience. And yeah, so from there, I mean, my love of basketball, of college athletics in general, was just kind of everything that I thought I knew was validated during that run. And after I graduated, I covered a few different sports. I've covered NBA, I've covered NASCAR, I covered the NFL with the Carolina Panthers for a few seasons. But for me, I just love I love the passion in college. I love that not every college player is going to get the opportunity to keep going. Like it is the end of the line for a lot of them, which means they care a lot. It's not necessarily transactional. They're motivated by things beyond money. That's changed a little bit since I started covering it. And I love the fact that if you have a wide open three-pointer in the NBA with 5 seconds left and you've got somebody taking it, that shot's probably going in. And in college, you never know what shots are going in and which ones aren't. So I just really love it. Again, being in the triangle, Duke, North Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, like Tobacco Road, it's awesome. It's the best place in the country to cover college basketball.
Definitely, definitely. And are there any memorable stories you could kind of elaborate on? Something that's really stuck with you since, writing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel lucky. I still like to think that I'm young. There's a couple that have really, I've been kind of stunned to be there. When I was a student, I covered the UNC Kentucky Elite Eight game where Luke May hit the buzzer beater to send UNC to the Final Four. That was the first time I'd ever been like shaking on press row. Felt like I was in an IMAX theater. So that's one for sure that stands out. Was fortunate to be at the Olympics, have covered the Olympics, was able to cover Michael Phelps, Allison Felix, Katie Ledecky. Was there when Brazil won gold at Rio. Got to see Neymar sort of break down. That was obviously very cool. Um, from a basketball perspective, I was there for UMBC Virginia. I was actually stringing that game for the Baltimore Sun, the local paper, and was supposed to write 200 words. And I emailed the editor at halftime and said, I don't think this is going to happen, but if it does, I'm going to need a lot more than 200 words. Um, so, it's things like that. Obviously having covered NC State, honestly, just these past couple of months and this crazy run through the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament, like all of those are the sort of memories that, I don't necessarily remember the scores, but I remember like the feeling and I remember the excitement and just being there is such a privilege. I feel very lucky to be in this job.
Definitely, definitely. And you know, as a writer, oftentimes it can be very biased. How do you kind of manage that? Like, not putting your opinion in there, but kind of just keeping it well balanced.
Yeah, I think bias gets attacked probably more now than it ever has. For me, having gone to North Carolina when I first started out this job, there's a lot of Duke people who said that I was biased against Duke. And now the pendulum's kind of swung the other way, and a lot of North Carolinas think I'm biased and I hate North Carolina. So I like to think if I'm making everybody mad, I'm probably doing my job the right way. Um, but the biggest thing is just relying on the facts. It's relying on you. If you say that a guy had a bad game, you can't say that without offering up, well, okay, well, he shot over 10. You know, I can't say that a guy had a terrific game if he only went, 2 for 10 or whatever, if he had 5 turnovers. Um, so I really try to live in the facts, really try to live in like getting to the root of things. And when you can combine that storytelling and that human element with the games themselves, if somebody has a breakthrough game in a moment when they're also having a personal breakthrough, I mean, when that Venn diagram overlaps, that's kind of like the sweet spot for me. That's my favorite thing to cover. So I rely on the facts as much as I can. There's a place for opinion. I do think there is. Um, you know, and we try to make sure at The Athletic, especially, that if I'm writing a column, it's got my name there and you can attack me all you want. But most of the time, I try to just live in the facts, live in what actually happened. And if you just report things as they are, I think that kind of tends to take care of itself.
Definitely. Um, and how do you go about finding stories to write about? Like what do you kind of look for when looking to write a story?
Yeah, well, there's so many different kinds, and like, at The Athletic, I feel really lucky to have the forum I do to write different things. Sometimes there's a great opportunity, just this season, for example, to do like some great human interest stories. UNC played in the Jimmy V Classic against UConn in December, and I did a one-on-one sit down with Hubert Davis. And for the first time, he kind of walked me through, his mom passing away of cancer when he was in high school, and obviously being tied to the Jimmy V, cancer event. That was a great special story for me, just because it's something that it peels back the curtain a little bit. And people, myself included, learn something about a really public-facing figure that they maybe don't know.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's room for detailed film analysis. UNC shifted some of its defensive game plans in December and January, and I did a video breakdown looking at those. When NC State went on its crazy ACC tournament run, like sometimes the moments make the stories for you, and you're writing about buzzer beaters and you're writing about magic, and those are great too. So it really is a whole combination. It's all of them. And then sometimes it is opinion. Sometimes it's something happens and you want to weigh in and you have a take on why something happened, or you can try and explain it. And you know, I think it is having all of those things that kind of that's the most essential thing. If you just have one thing, that's great. But being able to do it all, I think, is what I enjoy the most. It makes my job the most interesting. And I think it's hopefully why people like to read my stuff, because they know they'll get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, definitely. And what advice would you give an aspiring sports journalist? Sorry.
Yeah, no. A lot of things. The biggest one I would say is just like, you hear so often that sports journalism is not in a good place. And it is hard to be in sports journalism today. I'm not going to lie. But if you want it bad enough, there's a role for everybody. You
Mhm.
know, but you have to compete for it. I mean, you have to, the biggest to somebody who actually wants to do this and is committed to it. My best advice is the same advice that I got when I was a freshman at UNC. It was always say yes. If an opportunity comes up, say yes. If there's a party on the last day of freshman year and you want to go to that, but there's also, a basketball game to be covered, cover the basketball game if you can. If somebody asks you to do something, do it. If there's a phone call to be made, make it. If there's a connection to be made, go ahead, reach out. Like, you never know what's going to come from it. And so take advantage of as many opportunities as you can, get the reps, get the clips, put in that work, you make yourself better. But simply by always saying yes, you never know what opportunities you're going to stumble into. And I know I've stumbled into a few myself, wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't. So that's the biggest thing, is just know it's going to be hard, but know it is possible. And if it is, you kind of got to chase it to the end of the world.
Definitely. Well, congratulations on your 2024 National Sports Media Association Award, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, Alyssa.
Thank you.